What's up, everybody? Welcome to Down and Dirty with Michael Julian. I'm your host, Michael Julian, and on this show, we're getting raw, real, and leaving no stone unturned. Each week, I sit down with some truly remarkable people who have overcome immense challenges and adversity in their lives. Whether it was childhood trauma, discrimination, mental health struggles, or any other obstacle thrown their way, my guests aren't just survivors, they're warriors who took their pain and turned it into power. They'll share their unfiltered stories and the life lessons that helped shape them into the forces they are today. So get comfortable because we're about to get down and dirty. You'll hear firsthand how our darkest moments can unexpectedly light the path towards our greatest growth and success. Let's dive in and prepare to feel inspired.
Yeah, so because I came out and did that Schneider Electric mass instructor certification course for all their North American security managers to make them instructors, and you came and visited. That was what, a couple of months after you became an instructor?
That was it was about a month and a half later.
Okay. So probably a year and a half you've been an instructor, I think.
Has it been that long? I don't think it's been that long. I think it's only been a year.
You might be right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not great with time or memory or anything.
I'd have to look back, and yeah, it was sometime last year, I'm pretty sure, but it was beginning of the year.
Yes. So we're at about a year and a half.
Yeah, close to a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth Forster, it's so nice to have you with me.
Thank you.
On my show. We've been talking about this for a while. You are so many things. Well, now ex-wife, mother, executive protection agent, a live certified instructor, all kinds of cool stuff. Let's talk about you. Where did all this start? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Memphis, and then we moved to Nashville when I was 4. And that's where I've been.
You've been in Nashville ever since.
I have.
And that's where I saw you last before yesterday.
Yes.
Was when we came out to visit.
Yeah.
We all went out to that crazy Broadway street.
Yes, Broadway is crazy.
That was crazy. In fact, I want to talk about today what happened. I didn't want to get into it this early, but I want to talk about it today. Because apparently there's a real problem in Nashville with people getting drugged.
Yeah.
And we were out, you, me, my girlfriend, my sister, her husband. Well, maybe we shouldn't say where, but we were at one of the big bars because apparently it's not just one bar.
Correct.
It's like it's happening everywhere. And you've talked to people and law enforcement and everything, and it is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Well, for your story, tell me your story. And then let's talk about what we're learning about what's going on down there and why this is such a problem. And people need to be aware that this is happening and be damn careful what they order and watch what they're ordering.
Right.
So that night, so the 5 of us are out. We go to the bar several times. I think you're drinking Jack and Coke.
I was drinking Jack and Coke.
And you suddenly, we're out for about an hour, and you'd had a handful, but you said you can pound those things and not even feel it.
Yeah.
What happened?
So we were drinking, and I was totally fine. I have a ritual kind of in between, when I'm drinking. In between each drink, I always take a restroom break. I always go, but it's just a test. It's a walk. I take a walk, make sure I'm good before I order anything else. If I need to slow down, I'll order water or whatever. Right. So I had done that. I had literally just done that when I came back. That was when we decided to take some shots. And I said, specifically, I'm going to stick with Jack. So we order those round of shots. We're standing at the bar. Bartender goes across, makes them, brings them back, sits them in front of us. I take the shot. And within about 3 or 4 minutes, I felt like I had way too much to drink. And it was just all of a sudden, I don't feel good. I gotta go to the restroom. I gotta figure this out. So I told Heather I didn't feel very good. I was going to go to the restroom. So I go to the restroom, and I was in there probably 5 minutes or so before she texted me and asked, if I was okay. And I told her no. I was like, I'm done for the night. I can't drink anymore. And asked her to bring me a bottle of water. So she did. And yeah, it was just, I knew I wasn't drunk, but that was kind of how it felt, was like I had way too much to drink. And I ended up being essentially what felt like having a hangover for about 4.5 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of weird because we had been out for, I don't know, hour and a half, maybe.
Right,
we probably had about
late.
4 drinks. And I think maybe I'm being conservative to make us not sound like alcoholics, but I mean, it was Nashville. So we were having a good time,
right.
But I think we'd had around 4 drinks. We have this shot, And then all of a sudden you disappear and you're gone a while. And I'm like, everyone's kind of going, what happened to Elizabeth? And that's when Heather texted you. And your whole, everything about you changed when you came out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
It was like you'd been drinking for 8 hours straight, doing shots and everything. You were loopy, silly, wasted. You could still stand and walk, but you were just like that. And we're kind of thinking, man, that hit her quick.
Right.
So what's the experience? What happened? And then follow up with what you have now since learned that is happening in Nashville with this sort of problem.
So that was the big thing was, I knew what it felt like to be drunk and to be, loopy or tipsy or whatever and kind of be discombobulated. And that was the biggest thing was that I wasn't. If you remember when we came out of the bar, we went to my car and I knew exactly where I was. I knew how to get to my car. I knew what entrance we needed to go into the parking garage and where my car was, because I kept saying, I'm not drunk. I feel drunk, but I'm not drunk. Something's wrong. And that was a big thing, that was the biggest lesson for me in that was, it doesn't matter how cautious you are, and that was the lesson that I taught my daughter too, was it doesn't matter how cautious you are. You can be the most situational aware person, but the people you're with, you need to be people that you trust. And that night, if I had been with other people, I don't know what would have happened. Like you all took such good care of me in that moment. And that was huge for me. But yeah, so it turns out I did a little bit of research afterwards, talked to multiple people that I know, and there are open investigations going on in Nashville.
And law enforcement stings and all kinds of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't even know what all because so much of it's open. But the reports that I have seen that have come out is the fact that a lot of women are coming forward and saying that they're going to the police. When they don't feel good, they're going straight to Metro and telling them, we think we were drugged. We think something's going on, and they're not filing a report. They're telling them you're just drunk. You need to go home. And without a report being filed, you cannot go to a hospital and be drug tested. And the problem is that THP is out of your system in less than 24 hours. So without a drug test, there is no way to know if it's happening, but it seems to be continuously happening. And a lot of women are coming forward saying they tried to have a drug test done or they tried to go to the police and nothing was done.
You mentioned THP. We looked it up, but what does that stand for again?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is essentially it's a date rape kind of drug. It's used for Parkinson's, however. So it's actually a useful drug, but it makes you very, very relaxed. And it seems to be kind of taking the opposite effect of a normal date rape drug that just kind of blocks your memory, and a lot of people just pass out. With THP, it doesn't typically make people pass out. It just makes them very loopy, very relaxed, lowers inhibitions, all those things.
Numbs their neurological system, essentially.
Yes. So it seems to be a little bit, and from what I understand, it seems to be a little quicker acting, but it does give you a typical 3-ish days of what feels like a hangover afterwards.
But you were down for like 4.5 days.
I was.
Like down and out.
I was not down and out, but if I moved very quickly, I was instantly nauseous. That was really the big thing, is that first morning, when you wake up with that hangover and you've got the headache and light sensitivity and you're just kind of nauseous, the smells or different things bother you. That's what it was like for about 4.5 days.
Yeah. Now, when you first told me that, because I remember you couldn't drive clearly. I ended up driving your vehicle back to my sister's, put you in her spare bedroom, and we kept checking on you every 20 minutes, and you were awake, but you were just loopy as hell.
Yeah.
And even after an hour and a half, you didn't start to sober up.
Correct.
So we were dumbfounded. And then later I spoke to you and you said, yeah, I think this is what happened. And now this is what's going on in Nashville and blah, blah, blah. And it made sense. But the dots I could not connect is we were with you. No dude came up to you and started trying to maneuver you out the door or anything. So I thought, when did somebody slip something in your drink? And that doesn't make sense from an investigative standpoint. No, it didn't appear that anybody was trying to saddle up to you.
Right.
But you said they're testing this out and putting it in people's drinks just to get them wasted.
That's what it seems to be like, is that it's more of a test run at this point, that they're just putting it into, because a lot of the women that have come forward have said, they're in a group of, 10 women and only one of them had an issue, but they weren't separated from their group. They stayed together, all those things. But when they went to file a report or they went to do something, nothing was done. And that's been kind of the biggest thing about it, is that it's almost as if it's being a test, like a test run to see what kind of effect it has, because a lot of times people, I was telling you, Nashville is Vegas. Only Vegas knows what it is. Nashville still is trying to figure it out.
Right.
So it's growing so fast. It is one of the top destinations. It's the number one bachelorette party destination in the country. And the problem with that is that people just aren't aware of how dangerous it is, because you turn a wrong corner in Nashville and you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So getting separated from your group, one, is very simple, but at the same time, a lot of people that are in Nashville don't live. They're not local to Nashville, so they don't have somewhere to go home to. So I think that's part of the reason that it's become such a large test area, because people aren't leaving. They're at a bar, they start feeling drunk, and they just end up staying, and they're somewhat kind of local to that area because their hotel is just down the street, so they're going to walk to it or whatever, or catch an Uber.
Right.
So I don't know. Like I said, there's so many things that are open about it, and but there's just a lot of things. But a lot of the reports that I have seen in doing my own investigation, and then with Riley, and I feel bad because I don't remember his last name, but the college student that was found in the Cumberland, that had disappeared, and then was found in the Cumberland.
That was like that. Wasn't it within a week of? That was just
that was just a few months ago.
Yeah.
But in the reports that came out, he was drinking Jack and Coke. Jack and Coke seems to be the main drink of choice.
Maybe that taste is what covers up the taste of this stuff.
Well, supposedly THC has no taste, no flavor, no smell, nothing. So, but for whatever reason, I don't know if because it's Nashville, maybe, and it's Tennessee whiskey, maybe it's just the most popular drink, so it's the easiest one. But
well, let's get the awareness out there to everybody that's going to Nashville. And Nashville's a wonderful place, and we still love it. But you got to be damn careful.
You do, and that's the biggest thing is going. Not only being careful, paying attention. If you're not looking at your drink, have your hand over it. If you walk away from your drink, just get a new one. Don't take a drink from somebody you don't know. Don't trust the same sex. That's one of the biggest things that I try to teach women, especially, is just because a female hands you a drink doesn't mean you should trust her.
Shit, I didn't even think
And that's
about
the biggest thing, because I've had men approach me on a regular basis and say, hey, I really want to talk to this girl, but, will you take her this drink and tell her that I sent it, whatever.
Really?
Yeah. Because it brings down their inhibition to their guard, right? If I approach a female and say, hey, this guy's attracted to you and he wants to meet with you, he wants to talk to you, whatever, he sent you this drink, she's going to lower her guard, but she's going to also assume I know him. I don't know him at all. And that's one of the biggest things. When I used to do that before, I realized how dangerous it really could be, I always made sure I told the girl, I don't know this guy. Like, this guy sent you a drink, but I don't actually know him. I know nothing about him.
Wow.
But that's the biggest thing anymore is, don't just assume that because a female brings you a drink that it's even to be trusted.
And you mentioned that it might even be coming from the bartenders.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the investigations seem to be kind of uncovered on or focused on, is because of the fact that it's happening so often. They're wondering if bartenders are involved, just because of the fact that they have the easiest access to stuff. And like in our situation, I didn't take a drink from anybody but the bartender. My drink came directly at the bar. But, you didn't even hand it to me. So,
well, I know that's true, because when Heather and I were down in Mexico, we went to this little beach town called Sayulita, and we were hanging out with a group of people, and her and a couple of girls went up to get drinks. Heather came back with a beer, which I then, because I had run out, started drinking. I drank about 3/4 of it. She drank the last quarter, and I got like wasted suddenly. And she got a little bit weird, and I'm like, I got to go. So that came straight from the bartender, and that was a bottle. So they must have turned around, popped the cap, put something in it. So if you're going to Nashville, be careful and keep an eye on your drinks and cover them up, and don't take drinks from people you don't know.
Yeah.
Because this is not good. And who knows what is we don't know how much damage has been done, because one, we don't know how many people have chosen not to report it. And also a lot of people that have reported it were basically denied attention or treatment or drug test.
Right.
So, but now that there's a spotlight on this epidemic that's in Nashville, I think a lot will start to come to light.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Like I said, I mean, the news reports that have been coming out, that's what it's been, is a lot of women coming forward saying, I've tried to report something. I've tried to do this. And because I couldn't get anything filed, I couldn't go get tested. And now I don't have, now I don't know. I don't know if anything, I don't know if I'm wrong, because that's the thing. It's like, if you're reporting it and you're getting tested and you're finding out that you're wrong, then at least we know they're wrong. But if no tests are being done, So
I would get a lot of pleasure out of catching somebody doing that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little street justice. All right. So what else? What's going on in your life? So Memphis to Nashville, married for 20 years.
Yes.
Now divorced. A good ex-husband, which is
I have a
nice
great
to have.
ex-husband. Yes.
19-year-old daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just turned 19.
That's cool. Now tell me about, you just went on a little road trip with her.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we took 2 weeks, went on the road. It was absolutely incredible. We had done it when she turned 16 as a family, and she wanted to do another one. So just her and I went, and we drove from Tennessee all the way up across Montana to Washington State, down to Oregon, and back across. And it was absolutely incredible.
Tell me all the states you hit.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna test this
Yeah,
right this second?
yeah.
Okay, so we left Nashville. We went up through Kentucky, Illinois, and then across Missouri. We skirted Kansas because we tried to avoid Kansas, or Cornsis as we call it, because there's nothing there but corn. And then into South Dakota, where we stopped to see Mount Rushmore, because we, surprise, that's where it is.
Yeah.
And then we went into Montana, across the top of Idaho, Washington State, down to Oregon, across the bottom of Idaho. And then we dipped down into Utah before we hit Wyoming and Nebraska. And then we had to go down into Kansas for a hot minute just because of some of the floods that were happening across the country. So we dropped down into Kansas, back over to Missouri. And then our last stop, we actually glamped. We went glamping in Kentucky for our last night, and then back home.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was incredible.
That's really cool. And you did that with your daughter.
Yeah, we did just over 5,000 miles in 14 days.
Wow.
Just driving, sightseeing, stopping for the night.
What was your
getting up the next
favorite?
day.
What was your favorite part, or your favorite site, or favorite stop, favorite state?
I don't know that I had a favorite state. We got to see some friends that had moved from Nashville a few years back
To Montana?
and they had moved to Montana.
You sent me those pictures of Montana.
Yes.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Dude, amazing.
Yeah. I had never been to Montana. It's called the Big Sky. It's amazing because the entire time my daughter and I kept saying, it's the same sky we have, but it seems so massive. And I don't know if it's just because the landscape is so low, because there's still mountains. So you wouldn't think that was the case, but the sky just goes on forever. And we camped in Glacier National Park our first night in Montana. And we're literally trying to go to sleep. It's almost 10 o'clock at night and the sun is still up.
Wow.
Because the sky is so big, the sun really doesn't ever set. It just starts setting, and then it's like, hey, just kidding, I'm back. So I think it's only down. I think it finally went down around a 10:30 or so. It got finally dark, and then I think it comes back up at like 5 or something.
You can have some really productive days in Montana.
Yes, yeah. And our friends were laughing. They said, they have to like pay attention to the time because the sun doesn't set for so long that it feels like it's 7 o'clock and it's really 10 p.m. And
that's cool. That's really cool. Now, the reason you and I know each other is because you are a certified instructor of the Alive Active Shooter Survival Training Program.
Yes, I am.
And you've been about a year and a half now, I think we've determined. And I recall when you were in my class and we did our teach backs. I've not had as many females become instructors as I would like, but I've had, probably a dozen, probably 24 females throughout the world. But I will never forget your teach back exercise. And the teach back is essentially, we give you the PowerPoint and you choose a portion of it that you're going to teach and you study that night. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you studied all night, but it seemed like it, because when you gave yours the next day, you absolutely knocked it out of the park. Like I'm thinking, who is this chick? I mean, you killed it. And I don't remember if you set my expectations low, but I just remember being so surprised at how incredibly comfortable you were teaching. Why? Do you have a background of teaching or training?
I was a personal trainer for 15 years. So teaching, instructing, those kind of things comes pretty natural to me. I also grew up on the stage. I mean, my dad performed all over the place. My dad performed on Grand Ole Opry when I was a kid.
Performed music?
Music. I mean, we're Nashville.
Yeah.
So
Duh.
yeah. But yeah, I was always on the stage. I was in productions at church and singing at church and doing, a song here or there. We could go to Indiana and do Harvest Homecoming every year, and we'd perform on a stage there. And I mean, being in front of people and being on a stage is normal for me. So to teach or to instruct, that was, it just kind of comes natural to me.
Yeah, that was pretty evident.
Yeah.
I was, and I remember the other students in that class going, "Holy shit, who is this chick?" So at that point, I knew you were going to be a good instructor, which actually I will mention now that it appears as though it's looking like in the additional online modules of the Alive program, which we're going to have self-defense and disarming by Sifu Alan Baker, also an instructor. We're going to have de-escalation, the Calm course by Vincent Levy, also an instructor. It appears as though, if all goes well, you're going to be teaching our situational awareness class.
Yeah.
So these are all modules that we're going to put together and we'll offer with our online active shooter course. That's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
And you have written some killer articles on situational awareness. I mean, your LinkedIn game is hot. It's tight. And I had no idea that I just happened to see an article and that cool picture I love, the black and white picture of you next to the Denali or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And I'm like, that's one of my instructors. And then I read the article. I was like, holy shit, this chick's really smart too. So I thought, oh, that's cool.
Right.
Tell us about the articles, the situational awareness, your background, which is the foundation for why you're going to be teaching our online course.
So I grew up doing situational awareness, and that was really the thing. It wasn't until I got older that I was having conversations with people, and they quite often would say, "You don't think like everybody else." And it wasn't until I started having those conversations that I realized that I had kind of this, I don't even want to call it a gift, but this ability to see things or look at things or pay attention to things.
Awareness.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it stems from my dad. When I was a kid, I don't remember what happened. I don't know. I would love to know. I would love to be able to ask him. I'm sure he would say he doesn't know, but I was about 6 years old. This is the first memory that I have. I was about 6 years old. We were at a gas station and we had stopped. Me and my dad, I'm bopping through the aisle. I'm 6. I have not a care in the world. We're getting yoo-hoos. Like, I'm pumped, right? And we get the drinks and we go up to the register and we pay and we go out to the car. And my dad was very, very meticulous with everything that he did. And that's a big part of the reason that I am too. But I remember always watching everything that he did. And one of the things, like one of the examples of his meticulousness was when we would get in the car. He always walked around to the passenger side. Of course, this was back in the day where everything was a key. So you had to put the key in the car. And he would walk around. He would unlock my door. I would get in. He would push the lock down with his hand as he closed it. And then he'd walk around. So now the van is locked. I'm in it, but the van is locked. He would walk around, unlock his door, get in. He would lock his door with his elbow as he closed it.
Right.
Then we would get ready to go. He'd start the vehicle, whatever. So this particular moment, all of those things happened. And he gets in the vehicle. I hand him my Yoo-hoo. I'm pumped. I think he's just going to pop it open. And instead, I remember him taking that Yoo-hoo in his hands. He had these rough, calloused hands, working man hands. And I remember him taking that bottle. And, at that age, your dad's hand just swallows everything. Sure. So that Yoo-hoo just kind of disappeared in his hand. And he just kind of was holding it. And he said to me, "How many baseball caps were in that gas station and what color were they?" And I'm 6 years old. And I remember giggling and thinking, I don't know. Why? And the next words out of his mouth, I think are what changed my life completely. Because the very next thing he said was, "You need to know." And from then on, my life revolved around situational awareness. When it came to driving, even learning how to drive at 14 years old, 13 years old, I get behind the wheel and you're learning how to drive. And my dad would reach up and cover up the rearview mirror and say, "How many cars are behind you? What color are they? How long have they been there?"
Wow.
And, it was this running kind of game of knowing, you need to know who's following you. You need to know if this car's been behind you for a long time. You've made multiple turns and so have they, those kind of things. And it was, for me, it was kind of a game because I loved when my dad would do that. And I would say, it's a blue car. And he's like, no, it's a white truck. And I'm like, no, the white truck turned. And he's like, what? That was my favorite when I could get him because he had missed something. But that was just who my dad was.
Where did his desire or awareness, where did that come from?
I don't know, honestly. He was a military man. He was in the Army. But as far as his situational awareness or why he was that way, he installed automatic gates. That's what he did. So perimeter security stuff.
When he wasn't doing music.
When he wasn't doing music. Yeah, the music was just a hobby. It was just something that he loved to do. And music was always a big part of our home. But when it came to, security stuff, I don't really know what it came from for him, but it was just who he was. The meticulousness, he had to kind of work really hard to make a name for himself. As a kid, he was, the name, the Sands name that he carried. You couldn't get a job in his town if you had that name because his family was known for lying and cheating and stealing and being alcoholics and all of the things. And they weren't afraid to steal from each other. He had memories of having locks on his pantry because his relatives would come over and take food and stuff like that. So just to get a job, as a child, he had to lie about who he was to even get his first job. And he'd worked there about a month at a service station, gas station, and his boss, somebody recognized him and told his boss who he was. And he told him, he said, "This is your one and only warning. And you make a mistake, you'll never work another day in this town." He was 10 years old, and he worked there until he left for the Army at 18. So
he was always on his toes.
So, but I think that was the thing. I think that was what made him so meticulous. And I think the security part, the situational awareness part probably just came from that.
And going back to what we were talking about earlier, with your heightened level of situational awareness, you're always, your neck's on a swivel. You know what's going on. You got, eyes behind you and all that. Mm-hmm. And somebody was still able to successfully drug your drink.
Yep.
That's well, then again, a bartender turns around to get you a drink. You're not trying to see what's around them to make sure they're not putting something in your drink.
And that's why I say it's so important. That night, what I learned that night was who you go out with is just as important as how aware you are.
Yeah. Well,
because your awareness can not only protect you, but those around you, but being with people that have a like-mindedness as you when you get in that situation. When I got in that situation, had I been with somebody who wasn't like-minded, who knows what could have happened?
Yeah.
I could have been separated from a group pretty easily because I was so loopy.
Yeah.
But I was with people that thought the same way as I did.
Speaking of fathers and situational awareness, and I tell this when I teach alive, my dad being former military, former law enforcement, he was situationally aware to the point of, I believe, being paranoid or hypervigilant. Hypervigilance is actually a condition of not being able to relax enough and always wondering what's going on. And I certainly believe that was him. Mm-hmm. And then me doing security and, 21-year-old kid doing a bouncer in nightclubs on the weekends to meet girls and make money instead of spend money on booze. I got into that thing. And then I would go to nightclubs with a girlfriend or my buddies, and I couldn't shut it off. I couldn't relax. I couldn't enjoy myself because I was just always looking around, checking hands, when I should have been relaxing and enjoying myself. But certainly it helps lead into the type of careers that we have now, because now we're protecting other people. So it's our job to have our head on a swivel and see what's going on with other people around us. Okay, so your father, let's go back, since we already started talking about family. Tell me about your childhood. When we were doing a little pre-chat, I asked you, and you started to tell me, and it immediately, I went, whoa, don't tell me anymore. I don't want to know. I want to hear it for the first time so I can think, process, and then ask you responding questions, because I knew it was going to get good. It was going to get deep.
Right.
And this is called, the show's called Down and Dirty with Michael Julian, because we want to talk to people who have been through the shit, come out of it, and turn back and thank the shit for making you the human being you are today. Not being a victim, not saying woe is me, but saying it didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
Right.
So it turns out you're fall in line with this very nicely. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about what's going on, and maybe the dark side that created the bright side of Elizabeth.
So, I told you I was born in Memphis, and we moved to Nashville when I was 4. We moved shortly before I turned 4. And So the time that we spent in Memphis, I don't remember. I will call them a family friend or family friends, just in light of. But I find out here just recently, I've been in therapy for about 1.5 years, trying to just kind of uncover some things about myself, unpack some things about myself, try to figure out, what is it that makes me tick? What is it that makes me think the way that I do the things, react the way that I do to things? And, it wasn't until I started doing that I really started discovering some things and unpacking some boxes I had never unpacked. I joked with my therapist that I had guards like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that were 24/7 and they had the key. And I didn't ever go in that room. I had that secret hard room that was fortified. And if I had something I needed to compartmentalize, I just dropped that box off to the guard and walked away. I'm like, you put it away. I don't want to go in there. And so, my therapist came in like a bull in a china shop and opened that up and,
Good.
Let's put some light in here. And she tore down my curtains and she opened up boxes. And, but what we discovered was that, it turns out I was actually sexually abused as a child, when we lived in Memphis. And I don't remember any of it. My therapist, she offered, because you can do cognitive interviews and pull memories. I decided I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel like that was important. The interviews that we did do was enough for her to say, okay, I know this happened to you. Discovering it was hard because I had grown up thinking I didn't have any trauma. I mean, there's been so many different times that I've sat in counseling or therapy meetings or different things and, been the person that's like, I don't really have anything to talk about. I had a great childhood and I did have a great childhood, but it was the 80s. And back then it just wasn't well known. It wasn't, in the 80s, you just grabbed a teenager that lived close by and said, here, watch these toddlers. Like that was just.
And there was no Me Too movement. So the awareness was not there.
Yeah, exactly. And it just wasn't the common knowledge, the awareness, all that. It just wasn't a thing. And so I was, for lack of a different word, I was a victim of that. But at the same time, I was also very young. And I don't remember things that happened. There are things that we've kind of discovered probably happened simply because of the way that I react to certain things now. But the biggest thing that came out of that for me, I was so angry for about a month when I first found out. I mean, just at the world, just so angry. How could I have not known this? How could I have not ever figured this out? How come a few people that had suspicions had never said anything in my whole life? I'm thinking, here I was at the time, here I was 38 years old, and these people have had suspicions the whole time, and they've never asked me. They've never brought it up. And I was so angry. And then all of a sudden one day I'm having this conversation and I get this almost awe-inspiring moment where I realize, wait, this is why I am the way that I am. This is why I have such a desire to protect people. This is why I wanted to join the military and knew that was what I was meant to do. Because my job is to protect people that can't protect themselves. My job is to teach people how to protect themselves and how to protect their loved ones. And that's the biggest thing is, one of my biggest arguments with a lot of men in my life is they say, oh, she doesn't need to know how to protect herself. I'll do that. You're not always there. You go to work, you go out of town, you go to the grocery store, you go to the gym. There are going to be times when you're not with her and you can't protect her. Your role then is to teach her how to protect herself when you are not there.
Sure.
And that's huge. But it made so much sense to me in that moment when I realized I can be a victim, or like you said, I can take that thing that happened and realize that's what made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel the need to control situations. I can't control everything. And I learned that instantly in life.
Yeah.
But what I can control, I will.
Well, we're similar in the control thing. I get that. Now, I'm going to ask a hard question. Mm-hmm. You've given me permission to ask whatever I need to ask. And I want to preface it by saying I have no doubt in my mind that what you're telling me is true, or that you believe that it's true and that it happened. For those out there that might be saying, well, but just because a therapist told you it happened, how do you actually know? What information or what do you know that connects the dots to make you, instead of just some therapist, which a lot of people think are full of shit anyway. I don't. I think they're valuable. What information do you have, or what memories do you have that connects those dots to make you convinced that that actually happened, rather than it just being a suggestion by a therapist? Because that used to happen all the time.
Right.
There's therapists back in the day. I don't know if it still happens. Everything was, oh, you were abused as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was? Well, then it must have happened.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable sharing that one piece of the puzzle that actually goes, okay, there's no doubt in my mind this happened because I know based on my information, not what some therapist said?
So the way that it was uncovered, I was having a conversation with my therapist originally, and we were still in the kind of get to know you phase. And out of nowhere, she asks me, were you abused as a child? And I thought, that's an odd question for you to ask. And no. And she says, okay. And I asked, why would you ask me
Sexually
that?
abused as a
Yeah.
child.
Well, she started with just abused in general, but she implied sexually abused. But she said, I was just asking a question, and I said, that doesn't feel like a just regular question.
Kind of random.
It's kind of random. And she said, there was a few things that you've said. I just wondered if there was any of that. And I told her again, I don't think so. And it wasn't very long, maybe a week later, I was actually having a conversation with my mom. And out of nowhere, my mom said to me, were you sexually abused as a child? The exact same way that my therapist asked it.
And those two don't know each other.
They do not know each other. And my mom's been my mom my whole life. I mean, she's always been around. And literally my response to her was, why would you ask me that? Weren't you there when I was a child? Like, why would you
Also
not
random.
have the answer to that?
Yeah. Where's that coming from?
And so I asked her the same thing. Why would you ask me that? And she had the same response as my therapist. There's just things in your life, or things that you do or you say or whatever that have made me question. And I asked her in that moment, I'm 38 years old. Why are you just now asking me that, if you think that's a thing? And her response was that I needed to talk to another family member. And I was very confused. But I did, and I reached out to this other family member, and when I reached out to them, they instantly burst into tears. And their response was, I should have protected you.
Oof.
And of course, my response was,
from what?
You were a child.
Oh, okay.
Also, it turns out that I was not the only one being abused. And the other family member was much older and couldn't protect themselves. But their reaction to me was, I'm sorry I didn't protect you. And I'm like, that's not a thing. That wasn't your job. Your job, you couldn't even protect yourself. But your role was not to have protected me.
And this was a family friend that we're referring back to a couple of minutes ago that was the perpetrator.
Yes.
Or you said friends?
Well, we don't know. I don't know for sure how many were involved. So that's why I put an S on it. But yeah.
Okay. Well, that certainly solidifies it.
Yes.
So there's no question. It's not just that. You understand the reason I asked that.
Yes, of course.
I just, there's so many people that have a poor opinion because, frankly, there are so many therapists out there that should not be trying to help other people because they can barely help themselves. But there are a huge amount of amazing therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever. And, that used to be a go-to. Oh, well, you're fucked up. You must have been abused as a child, sexually abused. Yeah. So those dots were definitely connected with facts and corroboration by somebody else.
Yes.
Well, I'm very sorry that happened to you. But it also happened for you because look at the badass executive protection agent that works 300 days out of the year. That created your mindset and your situational awareness and your protective nature. So let's take that where it will go naturally. You now feel, and I just had Jared Van Dries on recently. He was abused horribly, and that's why he became a protector because he couldn't protect himself and he didn't want to. you mentioned to me that that's why you feel so strongly about your protective nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a thing. I struggle with the phrase "everything happens for a reason" because I don't think it's comforting to people especially when they're in the middle of something.
No.
And people say that to them,
No.
Because it just sounds like they deserved it. That's what that sounds like to me. And I don't think that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that we can find purpose in our pain. I don't think that I was abused as a child so that I could do these things later in life, but I think because I was abused as a child, now I can do these things and I do them well. And it took a long time for me to really understand that I have skills and abilities that I didn't even realize I had. Like I said, it was through conversations with other people when they would say, how did you see that? I didn't see that. How did you remember that? I missed that completely, and just little things, walking into a building. I can walk into a building one time and do a walkthrough, and then I can teach you where everything is. It's not so much a photographic memory, but my memory when it comes to things, where things are, the situational awareness of the building and the structure, and that's going to be this way, your parking lot's going to be that way, those kind of things. That makes sense.
It sticks.
Me.
It sticks in your mind,
because
that's where your awareness is.
Right. And it's little things. And that's the thing that I'm discovering. The more that I do this job and the more that I work in this industry, the more I discover that I see things I don't even realize I see. For example, I was working at an event not long ago, and we're in the middle of a crowd. It's public area. We've got some stanchions kind of blocking area, but the crowd is moving on both sides of me. And I had a couple of guys with me. So I've got a guy down by one stanchion, another guy by this stanchion, and the crowd's it's moving. It's constant. And this whole crowd comes walking through. There was kind of a break in the moment, and this whole crowd comes walking through. And as this crowd goes past me, a shirt is laying on the floor, and somebody dropped a shirt. And I hollered down at my guy. I'm like, hey, can you grab that? People are stepping on it. And he said, what do you want me to do with it? Hang it on the stanchion. The person will come back. We'll figure it out. So it's 20, 30 minutes later. And I had walked down to talk to the guy that was standing by the stanchion, had a question. So I had walked down there to help him and another patron. And this group of guys come around the corner. And without missing a beat, I said, hey, you dropped your shirt. And the guy that was working with me just looked at me and looked at the guy, and the guy was like, oh my gosh, I would have been so upset. Thank you so much. How did you know it was me? All the things. And I'm like, I don't, and the guy I'm working with says, there's 50,000 people.
And it wasn't because he was naked and didn't have a shirt on. It was a different shirt. You just remembered that group of people. I just remembered
that group of people. Something about that group of people told me that was the guy I saw drop the shirt. I have no idea why I knew it was that guy, but I knew it was that guy out of everybody.
Okay, so I have some input on that based on my program, the Alive program, and all the stuff that I teach. Different people have a different sense of awareness, cognitive awareness consciously, but we also have a subconscious awareness.
Right.
And you can train your subconscious just like you can train any other muscle, and I don't know if it's actually a muscle, but it's part of the muscle here.
Right, yes.
You can train your subconscious to be aware by being consciously aware all the time, because then it actually starts to affect the subconscious.
Right.
Because of your upbringing, because of the trauma, because of your protective nature, and because I don't know if I wouldn't call you a control freak, but you're very similar to me. You like to have control of situations, right? Mm-hmm. That's part of our personality.
Right.
Because of that nature, I think awareness is such a big part of your conscious. It's literally trained your subconscious to also be aware. And that is the difference between situational awareness and situational oblivious. Mm-hmm. And we teach that in the Alive program. Yeah. And as an investigator, when I was doing surveillance for 10 years for my dad, I would be on surveillance and literally could chain my front bumper to their back bumper and let them tow me around for 2 weeks, and they'd never know, even though I was in their, rear view mirror.
Right.
But I believe that is a skill that can be learned by anybody if they choose to learn it.
Correct.
I don't think it's a talent you're born with.
No.
It's something you have practiced. And when you practice something and you practice right, you get it. You do good at it.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Well, I think you can agree that level of situational awareness is one of the greatest assets an executive protection agent can have. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a hard skill. I don't think it's a soft skill. I believe it is something that will make you an incredible asset to your principal, because you're noticing, remembering, and able to regurgitate thoughts about things that many people might not pay much attention to.
Right. And that's the thing. It's you start learning patterns. You start recognizing those patterns. Your subconscious puts things, I call it putting it on a shelf, but it does. It sees something in it for whatever reason. It's like, I'm going to sit that here. I think we're going to need that later. And, and then something happens and you go, wait, this was a thing. And you pull that off the shelf and you realize those go together and now there's a pattern. And that's the biggest thing is when you are, especially for EP, when you're protecting somebody, your goal is to look for those anomalies. Your goal is to pay attention to the things that most people aren't going to see.
That's your job.
Those patterns. Yeah. So recognizing those patterns and recognizing those different things and seeing the thing that doesn't make sense or the thing that stands out or, whatever, that's what's, I feel like is so crucial in what we do.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I just want to give a shout out to one of my newest sponsors, Executive Protection Institute. They're out of Virginia and New York. Jerry Hang, the owner, formerly Dr. Richard Kobetz. I went through Executive Protection Institute in 2003. I had been doing EP for probably 15 years and thought I was pretty hot to trot. I went through that 7-day course and realized that I didn't know anything about this industry. It changed my life, my perspective, and helped me grow up as a man and as a professional. So if you're interested, it's personalprotection.com, executive protection industry, one of the greatest courses out there. There's some good ones. I only personally know from my experience that is one of the best, and it has continued to evolve over the years. So I hope that you will check it out, personalprotection.com, and we'll have some more stuff on all of my platforms to give you links and so forth. And I think we even get to offer a little discount if you mention Down and Dirty with Mike Julian or the Alive Active Shooter Survival Training Program, of which Jerry Hang is a certified instructor. So he's a big part of Alive and a great guy. So go check out EPI. Well, people that know me in the industry know I'm pretty outspoken. I've written articles and been interviewed. I believe that there is a massive deficit in qualified female EP agents. Not saying that of the ones that are out there are not qualified.
Right.
We need more females, but we need more qualified females. We need more qualified. I mean, if you're going to have people working in the industry, let's have them be qualified.
Correct.
I strongly believe that good female agents are such a tremendous asset to any situation. Obviously working with families and just everything. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, in my opinion, there are differences between males and females,
yes.
At least the ones that identify as male and female. And there are some strengths that women have that men don't have, correct. And vice versa. Tell me about your experience as a female executive protection agent, good, bad, what you like about it, what you love about it, what you don't like about it. I would love for current or future female agents to listen to this and have you kind of open things up and go, oh, okay, now I understand the industry better. And yes, I want to continue being in it or be in it, or maybe it's not for me, but at least it gives them perspective from somebody that actually does this all the freaking time, because you don't watch TV. What you're good at is EP and sleep, and,
yes.
and you're a good mom and you're a good friend. And when you decide to finally go out and have fun and not get drugged, you're a lot of fun to party with.
Right. Yeah.
But EP, you're a workhorse. So EP. I mean, you've done all the different kinds of EP and stuff. Tell me about your experience as a woman in this industry.
So being a woman in executive protection, honestly, I love it. I think the biggest thing that I had to learn the hard way was integrating into teams. When you join any team, especially in executive protection, but it's the same across the board. Doesn't matter what you do. When you join a team, you are exactly that. You are joining a team.
A group of personalities.
Exactly. A group of personalities, but something that's already existing. You're coming in, you have experience, you have knowledge, you have background, you have all of these things, but you're coming in as the new guy. You're the F and G every time, right? You cannot show up to a team and have all the answers, because guess what? you've never done this before, because this team's already being run. It's already successful. It's already here. It's been here before you. It could be here long after you, depending on how you play your cards.
True.
And that's the biggest thing, is learning that when you join a team, you are doing exactly that. You join the team, you come in and you offer the experience that you have, but you allow the dynamics and the personalities of those teams to fall into place first, and then figure out where you fit. And that's the biggest thing, is learning those personalities. As a female, there will be multiple personalities that you have to deal with. There are plenty of men who have been doing this for a long time, and they don't know how they feel yet about working with women. I understand that. There's also going to be the men that they want to work a little too close with women, right? So you have to figure out that dynamic too. And that's a big thing, is joining the team, figuring out the dynamics, and figuring out who do you need to create a little distance from? Who do you need to somewhat soften up a little bit in some form or fashion, right? But it's really not that hard when you learn those personalities.
Hold on.
Okay.
It may not be that hard for you.
Correct.
But you have to understand people, and you have to understand personalities, and you have to not be a defensive person or a hypersensitive person. I know you. We've been friends for a year and a half.
Yeah.
You can get along with anybody, right? You adapt. You're a chameleon. You don't take shit personally. You're a big girl. You don't pull this victim card garbage, right?
Right.
So it's easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's easy for everyone. And that's men, that goes for men too. It's
Right.
not about sex.
Yeah.
It's about your ability to adapt in a group of diverse personalities.
Correct.
So I'm going to have to, you may downplay it. I'm going to have to give you credit for being good at that.
Right. Okay. I'll take that. So yeah. So it may not be easy. One of the things for me, one of the things that I look for in those personalities is so for example, the man who doesn't want to work with the female, he's standoffish. He'll mansplain everything to you. He'll talk down to you, right? All of the things. But again, like you said, you can't take it personal. You have to have a thick skin. I grew up with a thick skin. I'm the baby of 3. I got thick skin anyways. I'm stubborn, all of those things. So it's hard. It's hard. I want to push back. I want to be a little bit kind of pokey, stabby, but I also know that doesn't work in that dynamic, because men are stubborn. Men are, they're set in their ways, especially when you've been in the industry a long time.
Hang on. That was sexist.
Oh, my bad. I'm
Not
sorry.
all
Women
men are stubborn.
Okay,
thank you.
Very, stuck in our ways.
You.
Yes. But when you've been in the industry for a really long time, or you've been in a job for a really long time, you do get stuck in your ways. Gender aside, you get very stuck in what you know, what you're good at, all those things. So when you have somebody new that comes in, you're not always ready for that little lion cub to come annoy the crap out of you,
True.
right? So that's the dynamic that you have to pay attention to, is the male that is very standoffish, the person on the team that's standoffish or wants to mansplain. Just let them. Take it with a grain of salt. Understand that it's not actually personal.
No.
It is in the moment, but it's not personal against you. It's just that they know what they're doing and they don't know that you do.
Right.
And they're going to test you. They're going to push you. They're going to kind of push you out there on the ledge and see what you're going to do about it.
Which is not a terrible thing.
It's not a terrible thing. And it can definitely be an advantage, because when the man that is stuck, or the person on your team that is stuck in their ways, pushes you out there on that ledge, it's a test. If you can survive that test, your best friend is going to be that person on the team, because that person is also the quickest person to go, they know what they're doing, and they're going to have your back.
Okay. Now, one thing we didn't cover, but I think now's a good time. Let me ask you this. Were you good with teams before, or do you believe that serving in the Army, which you currently do as a reserve, do you think that helped develop your ability to work as a team?
I think it broadened it. It definitely broadened my horizon when it came to teams. I grew up playing sports. When you're playing sports, you're on teams, and you have to kind of integrate in those personalities.
Which ones? What sports?
All of them.
Okay.
I grew up basketball, baseball. I got into soccer when I got older, but I played some football, I did some wrestling. I did basically everything but lacrosse. I don't understand lacrosse. That one's confusing.
Yeah.
And hockey wasn't around. But
nobody really understands lacrosse.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah. But I play indoor soccer, so it's kind of like hockey. It's just not cold.
Yeah.
But you get to, push people against a wall and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, growing up playing sports, being on teams, you have to learn those dynamics and figure out, the people on your team that you don't get along with as well, whatever, but you figure out how to make it work. But joining the military definitely broadened that, because you have you have teams within teams, right? You have your squad leaders and your team leaders and your squad and your platoon and your company, right? And your battalion and your brigade. Like it's just everything. It's teams within teams. One of the things that I learned by joining the military was getting to know your team and how crucial that is.
Yes.
Because everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. And if you have a strength that is not the same as mine, that's not a disadvantage. That's a huge advantage.
To the team.
But you have to know what they are.
Sure.
Which means you have to get to know each other. You have to get to know your teammates, because if I don't know what your weaknesses are, how can I keep them?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. How can I keep them?
You can't compensate for that weakness with your strength if you don't know what they are.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's the biggest thing as a team. You have to figure out what are everybody's strengths, what are everybody's weaknesses, and they're not meant to be, it's not meant to be in a way to exploit it. You're not looking for your teammate's weakness so you can exploit their weakness. You're looking because you go, okay, Joe is good at this, Jack is good at this, and I'm good at this, right? Now, what is Joe and Jack and me not good at? And where does that fit? And if you can discover all of those roles and you can actually figure out where everybody's strengths and weaknesses are, like, it's pretty obvious. I come into a team 99% of the time, I'm not the brute strength. Like it's pretty standard. I'm usually not the big guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can be very intimidating. I can be very hard on people. I can hush a crowd or move a barrier if I need to without any problem. But I'm not the brute strength. That's not my role. But knowing that means that if I'm with somebody who is the brute strength, but they are not the talker, they're not the de-escalation person, they're not the whatever, right? The two of us are going to be fantastic. And if you can join a team and you can learn the strengths and the weaknesses, you can make your team absolutely invincible.
And well, absolutely, because you're complete.
Yes.
You're in consensus and you work as a whole, as one body, if you will,
right,
which is stellar. If you're on any team for any reason, that's why championship football and baseball and volleyball and everything, when those teams work in consensus and they already know what the guy or girl next to them and behind them and in front of them are thinking, that's what makes a solid team.
Right.
Yeah. So, so what is your favorite part about executive protection in general? Is it the teamwork?
It is the teamwork. The teams that I have been, honored to work with and still get to work with are incredible. I mean, the people that I get to meet are amazing. I've had incredible principals. My favorite thing about executive protection is it's different every day. It doesn't matter. I can be on the same principle for a week, but Monday and Tuesday are totally different. And that's what I love, because I am definitely a person that gets bored easy sometimes with things. I want the variety. I don't want to be tied down to one thing. I don't want to go into an office every day. I don't want to go into a factory every day. I need that variety. And I get to travel. I get to go places. I get to meet people. I get to interact.
You hate to stand. You hate to hold still.
I do.
You can't stand it. You literally came back from 2 weeks on the road with your daughter and got on a plane and flew to California.
I did.
And when you get back, you've got 14 hours before you got to turn around and do something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what life looks like for me right now. But I love it because, again, it's, it gives me the ability to see the world and see, meet people. And I love to meet people, make friends and do things. And, the difference, the variety of stuff is what I love about it. It's challenging. Every single day is challenging. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be something new to learn. I'm a huge, lifelong learner. I love to learn. So that's another thing too that I love about it is it keeps me challenged. It keeps me on my feet. There's every single day. And that's the other thing too, that the teams, I've worked with men in 24 hours and learned more working with them in 24 hours than I could learn in a 40-hour course, going and paying a crap ton of money. I'm not going to get that kind of experience or that kind of knowledge doing that. But the teams that I've worked with, the men that I have worked with, the experience that I have worked with, I can learn so much from them. And that's what's incredible to me.
I have to share a parallel that keeps coming up. So I'm going to say it 3 times already. You reminded me of a past guest, but now I just have to say it. You are the female version of Alan Baker. Alan, most people know Alan. He's a freaking 20th degree black belt in 17 different disciplines. I loved him as a guest. I hope everybody watched that show because I learned so much from him, things that I will never forget. Like anyway, I'm not even gonna get into it, but you got to watch it to know what I'm talking about. He is a lifelong learner. He doesn't waste his time on television. I do. I'm guilty. He doesn't hold still. He's a people person. He likes to engage. It's like you guys are always absorbing knowledge and experience, and you just grow and develop and evolve like a balloon every time you get one new data point or one new experience or one new thing that you've done, and you just get better and better and better. I wish I was more like that. I'll be honest with you. But it is amazing. You guys are so similar, but you cannot hold still. You've got to be going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a childlike type thing. You know, I mean, when you're a kid, you're a sponge. You just absorb everything. And for me, that's what it's like. I mean, I spent so long joining the military and getting into EP. You know, I did life very backwards, got married young, had a kid, did the mom thing and the wife thing for so long. And then at 35, essentially started a career. And here I am now going, this is what I was made to do. This is what my life led me to. And here I am finally getting to do it. So I do kind of feel like a kid in a candy store most of the time, just like, what can I get a hold of?
Now, I love that. Let me do something. You remind me, I want to do a little backup. You joined the Army at age
35.
35. You wanted to be in the Army since you were young, but you decided to be a wife and a mother instead. And then when the wife thing was not an issue and your daughter didn't need her mother anymore because she was 19 years old, you joined the frickin' Army.
Well, she was actually a freshman.
Okay.
So,
still, she was a high school kid.
But yeah, she was a high school kid. And it was really timing. I was 34 when I decided I had to do this. And the age cutoff, for those that don't know, the age cutoff in the Army is 35. And at the time, this was in 2019, at the time, the regulation actually stated that you had to be finished with basic by your 35th birthday. That was the regulation. So I was very quickly running out of time. It was January of 2019. I was 34 and I turned 35 in July. So I was very quickly, my window was incredibly narrow. And I had to do it. It was this pull. It was this tug at my heart. I hit it.
Calling.
At 12 years old.
It was a calling.
It was. At 12 years old, I had told my dad, I'm going to join the Army. And his response to me was, yeah, I know. And I'm the baby of 3. I have an older brother. But his response still to me was, yeah, I know. And it was just what I was made to do. So fast forward, every 4 years or so, I would get this urge. It tended to be around Christmas time. I don't know, something about Christmas. I think it's just, we all kind of get that need to serve, need to give, need to be, like we just want to start giving all our stuff away. We're just happy and, all the things.
Spirit of the season.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's that. I don't know what it is about Christmas time, but something about Christmas time, every 4 years or so, I would get this I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And it was always a cycle of just, the timing wasn't right. Our daughter was young or our relationship was rocky or, whatever. Timing's never right. For those listening, if you're joining the military, the timing will never be right. Just pull the trigger. Like, do the thing that you're supposed to do. Follow your dreams, chase your heart, because you're going to regret it if you don't. And that was what I told my recruiter when I went in that day. And he looked at me like I was insane for, being 150 years old and trying to join the military. And he said, why do you want to do this? And I told him in that moment, my reason, I have lived my entire life knowing I was supposed to do this, and I haven't tried. I can't do that for the rest of my life. I can live with I didn't make it, but I can't live with I didn't try. And so I went in there essentially with it's in God's hands. Like my window was so narrow. The recruiter was like, I don't know if we can make this happen, but that's the best reason I've ever heard. So I'm with you. And, we started the process in January of 2019. Through the process, I was actually medically disqualified twice on paper. We kept sending my stuff up to USAREC. They're looking at me somewhere. I don't know where they are, but wherever they are in some other state. On paper, they're looking at this giant, thick file of, this 34-year-old mom who's a personal trainer, which typically translates into like a Beachbody coach or something, and they're looking at me. I've had multiple surgeries. I've got hardware in my ankle. They're going, why do we want this broken old woman to join? This is not a thing. And so they just kept denying me and sending it back. No, we don't want that. Right. And essentially it got to the point where, and I wish that I had it. I so wish that I had it. It was an email that came to my recruiter. It was in fancy army garb, right? The words were lovely and pretty, but essentially it said, send her to MEPS so she'll go away. Because they were so convinced I would fail at MEPS, and medically disqualified on paper isn't permanent. You have to go to MEPS and be disqualified. So they needed me to go to MEPS so I would fail. And I didn't, which I knew I wouldn't. But that was the thing. It took so long that in the process, not only was I already 34, the day that I left the recruiter's office, my recruiter called me and he said, "You're never going to believe this." But on January 1st of this year, so 11 days ago, they changed the regulation. You no longer have to be finished with basic by your 35th birthday.
Wow.
You just have to have started your enlistment process before your 35th birthday. You just went from a couple of weeks to a couple of months window. And he goes, "I'm not sure that I believe in God, but if that isn't God, I got nothing." And I was like, that is enough for me. So that was definitely my moment of going, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? This is that moment. So fast forward, there was a lot of ups and downs because it just kept not happening. And essentially now I very much say the process took just long enough for me to get no credit. Like that's because you know me.
Yeah.
I went full speed, 100 miles an hour. Every time they came back and said, "We don't think you can blank," I went and did blank and proved to myself and my recruiter that I could, so he would fight just as hard as I was fighting. I bought boots. I bought a rucksack. I was doing the mileage. I was putting in the work. I was training like crazy. Everything, anything they questioned, I needed to know I could do it. And I needed my recruiter to know what he was fighting for. So I busted my butt. But it got to the point where I couldn't do anything. It didn't matter what I did. I could do nothing else. I aged out. I was medically disqualified twice. They wouldn't send me to MEPS. I'm just in this holding process, and I am struggling, right? I don't break easy. I bend. I'm flexible, but I was close to breaking point, and I was definitely realizing there's nothing more I can do. I had written letters to the White House. I had reached out to Congress, like, please. I had gotten letters back saying, "It's great that you want to serve, but if you've been disqualified, it's permanent." And I didn't know enough at the time to be able to say, like, "No, I wasn't disqualified at MEPS. I'm just trying to go to MEPS." So I had run out of things to do. And that's the whole point of that story is I was out of options. And then fast forward to the phone call. They want me to send you to MEPS. This email is hysterical. It's essentially send her to MEPS so she'll go away. She's getting on my nerves. So they send me to MEPS. I had to then go take the physical. I passed with flying colors, but then I had to wait for an age waiver to be approved because at the time I had aged out. So started the process in January. Finally got to turn 35 in July. Finally got to go to MEPS in August. Had to wait a month for an age waiver to be approved. I swore in September. I left in January for basic at 35.
Wow.
35 and a half, technically.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, moral of that story is don't fucking take no for an answer. If you believe you're called to do something, you just don't stop trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that story. And that's why every EP team needs an Elizabeth Forrester on it. Back to EP. What is your favorite? What do you have a favorite experience or something memorable? Obviously, without mentioning your principal, or what do you have one individual experience that comes to mind that's like, this is either my shining moment, the most fun I've had, the best time I've had working with another person, or anything like that?
To narrow it down to one would be hard. I don't know that I have a favorite moment or experience. It's one of those things for me. Every single job, I have 2 moments. I always take 2 moments, and I feel like they're very crucial. The one moment that I take is that moment where whatever is happening, I pause and I go, holy shit, this is what I'm getting paid to do. Right? It can be the moment that the principal walks within arm's reach and you're like, oh, was cool, right? Or, because you have that little fangirl moment for half a second because it actually is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Or it can just be, you're in a facility that you didn't think you'd get to be in. Or, there was a moment where I got to walk through a tunnel that you have to be like super important, and they were turning people away earlier in the day, and then they locked down this certain tunnel for a part of the day, and I was in a hurry, and I knew the tunnel was the fastest, but I was like, I'm risking this moment. I don't know that I can go that way. I'll just try, and if I can't, I'll go the long way around. And I get down there, and literally the Tennessee state trooper that's working in the hallway recognizes me from earlier and goes, "Oh yeah, she's good. Come on." And I run through that tunnel by myself. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? Like, I'm not supposed to be in this hallway. But I just ran through this hallway by myself. So that was like, there's moments like that. But I always try to pause every job and take that moment in and go, I get to do this, right? And acknowledge that moment, because I think that's crucial. But then there's the flip side. The other moment that I always take in every job is that moment where my feet are killing me.
Oh God, right.
My calves are throbbing. My quads are locking up on me. I clearly did not drink enough water.
Right.
I really need a snack. It's hot. What is happening? That moment where it's like, why do I really want to be doing this? And every time I ask myself that question, without missing a beat, my response in my head is absolutely yes, I do. Right?
Yeah.
And for me, as long as I don't forget to have this moment here, but as long as my answer over here in the middle of the crap is absolutely, this is what I want to be doing with my life, as long as that answer is still yes, then I'm not complacent, right? This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
God, Eddie, can you believe this chick? What an amazing just perspective and outlook. You are such a fucking fighter, winner, kick-ass chick, man. Like, how do we bottle this and start teaching it in elementary? Because unfortunately, this newest generation lacks all of that stuff you just said. If it's hard, quit.
Yeah.
If it's tough, don't do it. Yeah. If it's uncomfortable, go cry to somebody.
Yeah. Jesus.
Well, mad respect to you for that. Let me give me some knuckles there. Okay. So you didn't give me that was a better answer than one individual moment or experience. So thank you for that. And God, is that going to, I hope young people everywhere hear what you just said. Is there, so there's no particular experience. What would you say to a young or old female, either new to the business or looking to get into the executive protection profession? What advice, if you were suddenly able to mentor someone for 5 minutes, a minute, whatever, what would you tell them?
Study, learn everything you can. The hard skills are important. The soft skills keep you alive, right? You've got to find the balance. You've got to figure out how to integrate in a team. You have to have thick skin. You have to have a presence about yourself. You've got to be confident in what you know, but you've also got to be humble enough to go, I don't know how to do that, and be okay with asking the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. As a female, I think sometimes we get kind of lumped into that, that persona that we ask a lot of questions. We're nosy, right? We want to know, well, why? Well, why are we doing this, right? I was that kid. I was a curious kid anyways. Asking questions doesn't scare me. But for a lot of women, a lot of people in general, it does, to admit you don't know how to do something.
That's hard for their ego.
I think it's crucial. I would rather say, hey, I'm not sure how to do this, or how do you want me to do this? I would rather ask the question than to kind of make an assumption or assume and be wrong. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to say, I've not done this before. How do you want me to do this? I've just joined your team. How do you want this done? Right? That's an okay question to ask.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask that. And then, on top of it, it's stay involved, right? Continue to learn, continue to grow, continue your education, and practice all of the things, but don't be afraid to ask those questions. That's probably the biggest one. And have thick skin. Don't be sensitive about the things. Like you said earlier, we're very different. Just in general, we're very different. Men Men have been doing executive protection for a really long time and crushing it. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There are things that can be improved. Always. There's always things that can be improved. Even with ourselves, there's things that can be improved. If we're not constantly looking to improve ourselves, then we're not doing anything. You know, I had a friend years ago say to me, you can only coast in one direction. If you're coasting for very long, you're going the wrong way, right? You can't coast uphill, not for very long. So you got to be putting in some work. If you're not looking to improve things, then you're not doing any work, right? So when it comes to certain things, men and women, we have different skills. We have different abilities, different strengths, different weaknesses. But if you replace all of the men with women, you can't clear a male latrine, right?
Can't what?
Clear the male latrine. You can't go clear the bathroom, right? I'm not going in the male bathroom to make sure it's good if I have a male client.
Right.
I got to have a male to do that.
Right.
And vice versa. So you can't, there's nothing that needs to be fixed, but females have abilities that men don't have and vice versa.
Right.
And if we can combine our strengths and our weaknesses, our teams can be absolutely incredible because then there isn't anything we can't cover. There's no corner we can't see. There's no outcome we can't predict because we bring those experiences together.
Wow. Okay. So let me just stop time and say what you just said, that whole thing, cut it out and apply it to any occupation, any sport, any challenge, any decision that a person makes in their life, and it is the formula for success. So my question was to a young or new or aspiring female EP agent, what would your advice be? And you just gave me a chunk of knowledge that a 95-year-old anything could apply at any point in time in their life, and it would be the formula success. That was amazing. Great. Thank you. That was a fantastic explanation. And seriously, we got to start making this show seen by Gen Zs.
Right.
We need to teach Gen Zs to have that attitude. Okay. Because so our country will stop deteriorating and start strengthening again, because people have the fortitude and the willpower and the forward leaning and forward thinking and take action mentality, right, and the thick skin and the, oh, you think you're going to knock me on my ass? Watch me get up and brush myself off, right, and do even better.
Yeah.
That is what made us great. And that needs to be applied. So bravo. Well done. Thank you. Beautiful answer. Okay. Great discussion on EP. I love it. Thank you for that. What does Elizabeth, in her 12 hours between flights from one detail to another, what does Elizabeth Forrester like to do for fun?
I don't know what I like to do for fun.
So rarely get to have fun, I suppose.
Rarely have any fun. There's a lot of things that I like to do. I love sports. I'm obsessed with sports.
What's your favorite sport?
Hockey.
Yes.
I have discovered that I am obsessed with hockey. I don't know what it is. I just, it's like soccer, but it's on ice and there's sticks and you get to hit people and there's aggression and it's amazing.
Because I know you so well. I know what it is. It is an honorable sport. They police themselves. Mm-hmm. There is respect for the opponent. They do both countries' national anthems at the beginning.
Right.
It is an honorable sport. And it is a tough sport.
Yeah.
It is not a pussy sport.
Right.
Guys, the refs will stand there and watch two guys beat the hell out of each other until both knees go on the ground. Yeah. Let's have more of that in our world, right? I mean, that has got to be, that's why it is for me. Yeah. It's a great freaking sport. And before I met my girlfriend, I didn't care. I didn't know the rules. She's so obsessed with it. She's forced me to sit through so many games and explain it to me. Now I go, no wonder you love hockey so much. Right. I freaking love it. And by the way, I'm going to plug my current favorite television show. If you haven't seen Shoresy on Hulu, damn, is that a good show? There's 3 seasons. They're making a 4th. That is the best freaking show. It's a spinoff of Letterkenny, which is this Canadian show with this smart ass guy. Yep. Holy crap, is that a funny show? But you got to be like stupid humor, which I do.
Yes.
Because, I'm not that bright. So, so hockey, great. I love that. All right. So that's what you enjoy. So at least you get to watch something. You enjoy watching something.
I do. Yeah.
Give me something. Tell me, just me. No one else will hear this. Tell me something about Elizabeth Forrester that not a lot of, I mean, you already did, but not a lot of people know?
Oh gosh, I'm kind of an open book. I don't know that there's much people don't know.
Okay, wait. Let's go back to EP.
You'd have to narrow that down.
What is your dream EP job? And it can be on a print. Anything. If you could snap your fingers and become the EP agent in any position, any team, any client, anywhere in the world, what would it be?
Honestly, I work for a company right now, and what I get to do is freaking unbelievable. So I kind of feel like I'm already in that role.
Of course you say something like that. Jesus.
It's one of those things. Like I absolutely love what I do. And I say that so many times. There are, the company that I work for the most, and a second company that's out of Nashville, one's kind of out of Vegas, California-ish. I don't even really know what the main area is that would be considered that they're located. But the one out of Nashville too, the two companies that keep me the most busy, it comes from the CEOs of those companies, 100%. I've had conversations with both of them, and that's always what it stems from, that leadership. The teams that I work with are so incredible. They integrate so well. They do so many things to include each other, right? To make sure everybody's on the same page, make sure nobody's lost or confused on how something's going to run or how we're going to do a movement or whatever.
Yeah.
And to move in and join a team like that and work with them. For example, this company that I'm with right now that I do the majority of my work with, when I moved in with them, started working with them, I didn't experience any of the things that I'm used to, the male that doesn't want to work with the female.
Okay, now let me interrupt you. Let me say that these two CEOs that you currently work for that you're so fond of better be paying you well, because after this interview, you're going to get some job offers from some good companies. Not that they aren't, but some more companies. So if they want to hang on to you, they better be treating you well.
Right.
Just saying.
Right.
Okay. So let me shift gears for a second, because I want to wrap it up. You have something that you showed me last night that is so freaking cool that I didn't know existed, that of course I immediately jumped online and bought one. Do you have your little toy? I shouldn't. Do you have your little weapon on you? Okay. This thing is so badass. This is a Sharpie.
It's a Sharpie.
It's a Sharpie.
It makes me Jason Bourne.
It's a Sharpie that will go on go through TSA on any airplane.
TSA, yeah.
And then when you take the cap off to write,
it
is a freaking stabbing instrument.
It is.
That is damn sharp.
It's a pokey stabby.
Yeah, it's a pokey stabby. And do you remember what I say is the most commonly attainable weapon in an active shooter situation?
Anything that can be stabbed like that. Anything that you can use towards the eyeballs.
A pencil, anything that you can take to attack the eyesight is going to immediately get the perpetrator, the attacker, the killer, to forget about shooting you and auto respond by trying to protect the eyes.
Yep.
Probably drop the gun or go like whatever, then you can attack them. This thing is awesome. Now, I saw them as cheap as $13 and as much as $40.
Yeah.
But this is literally, this says everything. We pulled, Heather went, got a Sharpie.
She did.
It's the same freaking thing.
Yeah.
It just will jam through the orbital hole or octagal, whatever, the eyeball nerve hole in the skull.
It'll get all the way into that.
It'll get all the way in there. I love this. This is awesome. I love that.
Who wants to die by Sharpie? That's
I probably ought to put those on the website, sell them on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really pretty great.
I'll put it.
It's one of those things. It's like I have people ask me all the time about weapons and what to carry. What should you carry and I tell them all the same thing. Carry what you're excited to carry. Like take the thing you're going to use. Practice with it, obviously, but if you're not sure how to carry it, if you don't really want to carry it, then you're not gonna.
Yeah.
So have the things, have extra tools in your tool belt, have things that, are like that are kind of exciting, whatever, but know how to use them too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, couple last things before we go. What are you passionate about? Now, I know you're an athlete. I know you like to work out. We went to the gym before we came here to do this. Great workout. Little shoulders, little triceps, little abs. That was awesome. I love that. What are you most, of course, you're going to say your family, your daughter. Let's put family aside. What are you most passionate about? If you could, what what gets Elizabeth? Well, everything gets you out of bed in the morning. You just wake up and go, go, go. But what are you most passionate about in your life?
Probably making a difference. My dad had this. He had multiple things that he said in life, but he had two kind of main things that he lived by. These anthems that were very much him. One is one that he stole from Gail Carnegie, but he made it his own. I didn't know it was the Gail Carnegie quote until years later, but it is, people don't know what you care until they know that you care.
They don't know.
They don't care what you know until they know that you care.
They don't care what you know until they know that you care. I have heard that. Yeah. I do like that very much.
Yeah. And he lived by that. And that's a thing, I mean, it starts with little things, the conversations, the active listening, the being engaged with people, the meeting people, accepting people, all those kind of things. Those little things go a long way. A smile goes a long way.
Huge.
It doesn't take any effort out of your day to just smile at a stranger,
and it can literally change the course of that person's day. They could be having, sorry to interrupt, but I got to do this. I always make things about alive because I love my program, right?
Yeah.
But we talk about, you could literally change the course. You could save lives with a kind gesture.
Yeah.
Because somebody's on the edge, ready to go over, and one last poke could set them on a killing spree. Mm-hmm. Or one little smile could walk them off the edge and completely change the course of their life.
Yeah.
Because people are fragile. We are fragile. Our egos are fragile. Right. Emotionally and psychologically, we can be fragile. And that smile can change everything.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I was actually leaving. I was leaving a Starbucks, and I didn't have any cash on me. And I walked past this homeless guy, and he, the typical, "Hey, do you happen to have any cash you can spare?" And I stopped, and I said, "Sir, I apologize. I don't actually have any cash on me." And I said, "But I hope that you have a really great day." And I smiled at him, and he just stopped, and he said, "Ma'am, you're the only person that's even spoke to me." And he said, that was more than cash would have done.
Yeah.
And it didn't take any time out of my day. It wasn't hard for me to slow down. And, I wrote a LinkedIn post not long ago about slowing down, which is funny because I don't like to do it. But I challenged myself for a week straight to slow down. And it was small things, literally in line at the grocery store, and somebody had a couple less items than me, and you go first, right? And letting them go first.
Yeah.
Or holding the door open a little extra long for somebody that's walking and they're taking their time. But I see they're coming. I know they're coming to this store. I can stand here for a minute. And it doesn't take a lot of time out of the day to do those little things. But what I discovered was in the course of a week, forcing myself to do that, to let the person go at the stop sign, to let the person go first, right? To not cut somebody off, to just wait an extra minute instead of, cutting this car off, let them go, to not go around somebody because they're not quite doing the speed limit and I'm kind of in a hurry, whatever, or they're just going slow. In the course of a week, what I discovered was I actually had more time in my week by slowing down. I got everything accomplished that I needed to get accomplished in the course of a day. And 90% of the time I got it done in half the amount of time because I wasn't stressed. I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't forgetting things. I wasn't running out the door and realizing, oh, I need to do this. And just by slowing down, but it had nothing to do with me. I was putting everybody else first. I was letting other people go first. I was slowing down on purpose, holding the door for a stranger, whatever it was, helping an old lady put her groceries in her car. Taking time out of my day, a physical time that you can't get back. But at the end of the day and throughout the course of the week, I still got everything accomplished I needed to get accomplished. And I managed to have more free time than I realized I had.
Well, they say slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Mm-hmm. And that absolutely illustrates that 100%. Yeah. And I totally agree. I have to give my own perspective on this. I forget to slow down. Right. I get frantic. I've got the weight of all of the shit that I've created on my shoulders. And I figure if I go faster, I'll get it done quicker. And I fall and I stumble and I run into walls and I hit my head and I do stupid things because I'm not going slow. I'm not smooth. So I'm not fast. And that is a phenomenal lesson. And another thing young people need to learn. I'm not down on young people. I love young people. But this new generation just needs a little,
right?
No, I'm kidding. There's good kids out there too. That is, you know what? I'm just going to stop it there. I don't think I don't want to go any further. That was such a great place to end this show because that was beautifully said. It's incredibly well done. Except I will say this: how many subscriber followers or whatever do you have? How many connections do you have on LinkedIn?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I think that this podcast is going to be shared so much because of you that you're going to get a whole bunch of new subscribers, followers, connections, whatever they're called. Keep putting out that content. You write really, really good articles.
Thank you.
And you don't AI them. You write these things.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. And I think more people, I think besides job offers and marriage offers, you're going to get a whole lot.
None of those. Raises would be great though.
Raises,
my
I think raises
watching.
would be
Yeah,
very,
nice.
very appropriate.
I accept.
Yeah, I think you're going to get this. This has been such a enjoyable and enlightening. I mean, we've been friends for a year and a half, but I didn't know that underlying, who you are down below, except you're fun to go drinking with. You're good, fun to talk EP with. You're a great phenomenal alive instructor. And a good person. But now I know a whole lot more. And so I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today. Because
thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Anytime. And again, sometime, I hope. Let's see where you are in a year. In fact, I want to see where you are in a year based on what people have learned about you on this show. So I can take credit for all your new success.
Wonderful.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Until next time, please connect with me on your favorite social media platform where you can follow me on my personal journey, including the fun stuff I do with people close to me to celebrate our lives and our victories.